Okay, y'all, I'm gonna do a follow-up from my video yesterday. In Daniel chapter 3, we were talking about how King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon saw the great power and wonder of God when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego or Azariah, Hananiah, and Mishael were thrown into the fiery furnace. But they came out of that furnace unscathed, unburnt, untouched. Says the hair on their heads wasn't even singed, and they didn't even smell like fire. And he saw that. He saw that. He was there. And we saw King Nebuchadnezzar kind of give praise to God and say, "Blessed be the God of Israel, blessed be the God of Shadrach, blessed be the God of these guys," but he never personalized that, and he never had that relationship for himself. And then in Daniel chapter 4, he has a second dream, and Daniel interprets this dream for him and tells him that, hey, to sum it up, pretty much, you have kingdom, you have power, everybody praises you and gives you glory for the great kingdom you've set up and the power he has. But the time was coming when Nebuchadnezzar was going to have that power and that kingdom stripped from him, and he was going to be, the dream said that he was going to be driven out into the field with the wild beasts to eat grass like an ox. And we see this happening in Daniel chapter 4. In verse 31, he says, "While the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven. King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you, and they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field." Skip down a little bit. That very hour the word was fulfilled concerning the king, and he was driven from men and ate grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew of heaven till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird claws. So he was literally driven out into the field and all his power stripped away from him because he missed his opportunity to have a relationship and give glory to God. But in the dream, they said, Daniel told him it would just be 7 years. So God wasn't putting him in this bad position forever. God sometimes will put us in a rough spot. He allows us to go into rough places, rough seasons of our life to train us up, to open our eyes to the better way of life, to open our eyes to the future and what he has for us. So then in verse 34 it says, at the end of the time, so at the end of these 7 years, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me. And I blessed the Most High, and praised him and honored him who lives forever. So now he is giving God the glory for himself. He is saying the God of Israel is now his God. But I want you to reread verse 34, the end of it. It says, "And my understanding returned to me." Well, where did his understanding go? His understanding got taken away from him by God for a little bit because he was choosing to live in pride and not live in humility and just think he did all these things on his own. So God took that understanding from him and kind of gave him over to a reprobate mind, like he'll do us sometimes when we choose to go against God. What does God do? God just lets us run off into sin like we want to, and hopefully we see how foolish it is, and we turn back and give praise to God before we ruin our lives completely. But the understanding returned to the king, the once king. You know, he's not being prideful right here, because he's not trying to make it sound like, oh, I finally figured it out again. He's saying, God gave me the understanding. God gave me the capability and the ability to recognize that God is God, and there's nothing else. It's not me. I'm not the king. I didn't set that great kingdom up by myself. It was God. And so when God allowed him to see this, God allowed that understanding to come back to him. What'd he do? He turned right around with it and blessed God. And from this time, verse 36, it says, "At the same time my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. My counselors and nobles restored to me, and I was restored to my kingdom. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all of whose works are truth and his ways justice. And those who walk in pride he is able to put down." And he gives us that last sentence, those who walk in pride he is able to put down. He gives us that from personal experience. Because Nebuchadnezzar had been that prideful man. He had been that man doing things his way and not listening to anything or anybody else. But now he knows, hey, it's not me doing this stuff. I cannot be the captain of my ship. I cannot be the ruler of my destiny. And neither can we, people. We cannot choose our own destiny. We cannot be the captain of our lives. Our lives will end up shipwrecked. Our lives will end up going nowhere good. My nephew got in trouble yesterday at school, 4 years old. I talked to him last night. I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "Man, I was going too fast down a 4-lane road." And you know, when we get to living life on our own, we get to going too fast down a 4-lane road, and it don't end up good for us. So let God do what he wants with you. And trust me, it's better than what you want to do for yourself. Alright? Love y'all.